atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?
This town needs an enema.
Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid of the big black bat?
When Gotham is ashes, you have my permission to die.
Gotham, this is your liberation.
My mother warned me about getting into cars with strange men.
This isn't a car.
20 years in Gotham. How many good guys are left? How many stayed that way? He has the power to wipe out the entire human race.
Tell me, do you bleed? You will.
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector. In the dark night, I'm Batman.
Let the games begin.
Welcome to the Batman on Film podcast. Here is your host, Bill Jett Ramey, co-host Rick Shew, and the BOF Roundtablers, Justin Kowalski and Ryan Hoss.
Hey now, you are listening to Volume 2, Episode 87. Is it time to drop the Volume 2 thing, guys? What do you think?
Probably.
Okay, we'll try to forget about Volume 1. You are listening to Episode 87 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor, as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all the shows at batmanpodcastnetwork.com. Ryan, you have a recommendation from that one of those podcasts?
Yeah, I guess that was kind of a trend I started last week. That's just off the cuff. I don't know. I guess we could mention Holy Batcast. I mean, they're definitely on the network, and they do good work, and they have a lot of variety. You know, they'll cover animated series episodes and all the animated shows, in addition to, you know, cool Batman topics every once in a while. They'll do cool things like what's the top 10 bat suits or top 10 Batmobiles and stuff like that. So it's a cool show, and Andy DiGenova does a great job with that. So they're part of the network, so you can find Holy Batcast in addition to all the other great shows at batmanpodcastnetwork.com.
Okay, yeah, shout out to Andy and Holy Batcast. That's one of my favorites as well.
Yep, Andy's a good dude, man.
All right, I am the host of this here podcast, as well as the founder, editor-in-chief, and all-around guru of Batman on Film, Bill Jett Ramey. With me today is only one of the great BOF Roundtablers, and that would be Ryan Hoss. Justin is on assignment, actually, this morning, and his assignment is work, so unfortunately, Justin cannot make it, but he is here with us in spirit, I am sure. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good. I was going to ask Rick if he heard last week's Dark Knight Rises podcast. I'm a little sad that we're not talking about that movie anymore, and I wanted to see what Rick's reaction was to me completely obliterating Justin's Orphan Vision challenge.
Okay, so here's what I would say to that. I did listen to the whole thing, and I think it was great. I think it's a wonderful compliment to our first episode. It certainly is tonally different, you know, for sure. For better, for worse, whatever, indifferent, whoever, whatever your opinion is. But I think it's the dichotomy between the two shows is strong. And right, it really is. So listen to both of them, and I would listen to them in order as they were released.
Absolutely.
So yes, you did. And my favorite point that you made is that when you talked about the pit and you gave the analogy of Gotham and what Bane was trying to do to the citizens of Gotham by making them, building up hope that he was somehow going to take care of them. And the way that you referenced the pit and how the pit was really a prison, and that's what he was doing to Gotham. But there was this light, and it was hope. And it was the most damning thing that you could possibly do to somebody. And I thought that was the strongest point that you made.
Yeah. That was off the cuff too.
It was fantastic. And to give Justin credit, he made, you know, obviously he's fantastic anyway, but there's some things I agree with him with. I certainly agree the 8 years is too long. And I never really felt that way until these last few months. And when I rewatched it again, I was like, you know, that argument, I will concede that point. So there was good points back and forth. It's still a wonderful masterpiece of a film, and it always will be. So it doesn't really matter. You guys didn't change the needle. You guys didn't convince the other. But you both made really good points. And obviously I agreed with you 98% of the time. I agreed with him about 4% of the time. So, I think you like the film a little more than I do. And I think that's a fair thing to say.
Yeah.
It's an A-, whereas The Dark Knight and Batman Begins are A+. I probably would put Batman 89 as an A- just for nostalgic reasons only. And then really the rest of the films are kind of just I'm indifferent about them.
All right. I love The Dark Knight Rises, so I agree with Ryan 99.9%. And I do not think the 8 years was too long. And since we're not going to talk about Rises at this time, we'll table that. But yeah, the needle didn't move for me either way. But I think both podcasts were great. And listen to both back to back, or at least in that order. You're talking about 3 hours?
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say that. There's over 3 hours of Dark Knight Rises talk. That's good. Job well done, everybody.
and when I reflect back on all the films now that we're done talking about Rises, I think, man, there are still some good moments in Batman Returns, and they have nothing to do with the Penguin. Any scene he's in, not good.
Like the ballroom scene with Bruce and Selina.
Until he crashes it, yes, absolutely.
But you know what? I'll go ahead.
No, I was going to say Batman Forever has even more great moments when he comes out of the fire and he's just pissed off.
Awesome.
That scene is awesome.
Yeah, that seems good. And then I'll say this, Robin saving him from the sand pit or whatever, from all the debris.
It's not
and
bad.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Not bad. So
that's the best Chris O'Donnell moment.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. And then Batman Robin even has a couple of good moments between Bruce and Alfred, and BVS has some really good moments. So there you go.
But, I was going to say, I guess I spoke too soon about not talking about Rises, because we will eventually get to our trilogy podcast.
We are going to do the trilogy podcast, yes. And that's coming. We're doing 89 for episode 89, and then maybe we'll talk about the whole 4. What would be the best way to do it? Talk about the 2 Burton films together and the 2 Schumacher films together.
Interesting. I mean, that's interesting because that's how this podcast started out. You and Rick had a couple episodes about it, but
I don't mind going back with. I wouldn't mind going back with. The podcast is much better than it was back then.
Yeah, it's kind of transformed since then, for sure.
Absolutely.
Do we really need to do a show and talk anything about Batman and Robin? I'm barely kidding, by the way.
I think there's some things to be. Its legacy. I think there's.
It
a lot
did
of
turn 20 years old
about.
this year.
Yeah, it did. I think that the effects it had because of it are significant. So anyway, let's get back on track here. Of course, if you've been listening, you know that I am joined today by the co-host of this podcast. That would be Rick Shew, straight from Mesquite, Texas, by way of West Plano, Texas, by way of the wonderful Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, which, of course, is in the great Lone Star State of Texas. Hello, Rick. How are you?
I'm just trying to figure out exactly how to properly respond to this new introduction. At least you called me by my name I go by.
Well, I did have Ricky Joe Shew in my copy, but I decided to be nice to you this morning.
By the way, if you guys are going to type that, like Ryan's been doing on Twitter, it is Rickey.
Yes.
So at least show me the proper respect and spell it.
You know what? On my copy right here, Rickey.
Well, there you go.
Okay. You went to Chicago, and there were obviously some super fun times for all. You had a little bit too much fun at one point.
Yeah, so my wife plastered. I know what you're referring to, so I'll just jump.
Oh, that was awesome, dude! I gotta give Marty props for that.
We're coming home from
so good. It's almost like it was fake.
Well, and that's why I married Marty. My wife's awesome. She's just cool, man. She's a cool girl, and she always has been. And so, when I passed out in the cab on the way home from Billy Joel, way too much to drink, and she, I didn't need help getting in or out of the cab. I just fell asleep when I got in, right? But she, I don't ever fall down drunk, not ever.
Painting a picture here.
But she takes a selfie of her looking at me and me passed out and says, "Chicago, baby." She plastered it on Facebook. and she's not on Twitter. So when I woke up the next morning, I look at my phone. I have like 8 text message threads going amongst different people, you guys included. I have like 100 something, I don't know, Facebook notifications because all these people that shared it, liked it, whatever. And I wanted to delete it at that point, but I'm like, what do you do now? It's out there. People were already making memes out of it. My buddy drew I'm going to say a bad word here. He drew a dick on my forehead. like I had been, like Marty had drawn that on my forehead. It was pretty bad. Anyway, but other than that, we had a great time. It was a really, really awesome trip. You can't beat Chicago when Chicago's weather is between 65 and 75 degrees. It's a remarkable city when you can get out and really enjoy it.
I like Chicago. I do. Yes, it's a good city.
Great city.
Now, Marty, I know her family is from Chicago.
Yes.
She's pretty much a Texan, though. True.
Yeah, for the most part, right. She was born there, and she lived the first few years of her life there, and she's gone back and forth her whole life. But she was more or less raised here in Texas, and she went to UT and everything. So yeah, she's
told me, excuse me, when I first met her, you were like, yeah, my wife's a Midwest Chicago girl, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. My wife's a Midwest Minnesota girl, and so we were at the table, and you had gotten up. I said, so you're from Chicago? She goes, I'm from Texas. And so she proceeded to tell me that she
it's weird.
Most of her life here.
Yeah, and when I say she's a Chicago Midwest girl, here's the thing. She spent most of her life here, yes. She was born there. She has family that lives there. That's what her aunt has a condo in downtown. We see her. She has a half brother up in Woodstock, Illinois. She has family in Crystal Lake, all over the place. In the city, around the city, etc. But when I say that she's a Chicago Midwest girl, it's because my in-laws, you go to their house. They're not Southern. They're not Texans. They are Chicago, and that's the house she was raised in.
Do they have the?
She has their personality. She has their attitude. She has their vernacular.
Do they have Do they have the stereotypical Chicago accent or no?
My mother-in-law does. My father-in-law, just in the 15 years I've known him, has lost it. His 2 favorite football teams of all time, and always have been. And this is one of the reasons he came here, Bill. Dallas Cowboys, Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
There was always a little Texas in them, even in Chicago. But his son still lives up there too. So,
last time I have not been to Chicago since 19. Come on now, 2007 when I went to the set of The Dark Knight. So I'd love to go back. It's been 10 years since I've been there. So. Great city. And I once drove all the way from Minneapolis to Chicago, and it's actually that's a pretty trip in the summer. If you take it, then you go through Wisconsin and of course northern Illinois into Chicago. So very nice. All right, Batman on Film, authoritative, definitive, the Dadgum original, and yes, we do have T-shirts that say that. So you can find them at TeePublic, and you can find the link on Batman on Film. Proper. One other thing I want to plug. We are 134 days away from Batman on Film 2.0. We all excited about that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be nice. Yeah, it's good. I mean, still read. It's going to be a nice aesthetic upgrade. It was time, So
yeah, it's going to be nice and clean, scalable to, your tablets and your cell phones and smart.
Yeah, you'll still be able to access what we're going to call old school BOF. None of that will go away. It'll remain as more like archives and so forth. So that will all still be there. Let's talk some Batman on Film, boys. That was a good, interesting conversation. That'll open up the show. All right. First up, I have this for a topic, boys. Ben Affleck, I believe this was an Entertainment Weekly article. Was quoted as saying that Justice League is an interesting product of 2 directors. And I thought that was a very telling quote from Mr. Affleck. Rick, what do you think about that, man?
Well, I think it is what it is. I think that, obviously I haven't seen the film yet, so the jury is obviously still out on what the finished product is going to be like. But I think that this notion that Joss was coming in just to do a couple of little reshoots here and there and whatnot was, I never.
So is it? Can we dismiss that PR statement at this point now? I mean,
I would like people to think that they could, especially now. I mean, Affleck himself has confirmed it. And we've said this a million times. When you come in and you change the composer, that's a main character in the film, and that's a big deal.
And I believe, Ryan, am I right? Did they change the DP?
I don't know if that has been announced or not.
I keep getting tweets and emails about it. Or maybe the editor. Okay, maybe maybe I'm wrong about the DP. Editor. Okay, that's another one. They changed the editor. So
right.
Go ahead.
Those are just major changes. So as it stands right now, it looks like Zack Snyder is going to actually be the director in terms of what is on the screen. It'll be interesting to see if he does any press or not. My guess is he probably won't. But he might. And, I always love seeing him and he's a really cool guy. So hopefully we'll see him around doing some interviews.
I have some information on that I will tell y'all.
Okay. There you go.
Off mic.
Off mic. Okay. There you go. Well, again, I don't know. I would just be surprised if he does. So it'll be real interesting when they go around to do press, because how is that going to work? Who's going to be considered the director, whatnot? But most importantly, this is that when we go in to see that film in November, which we're all going to see, my guess is I'm probably not going to like it, but I could be pleasantly surprised. But regardless of how I feel about it, I will see it a minimum of 5 times in the theater. I just will. That's just me. So I'll support this film as much as I can. And, it'll be interesting when we all walk out of that theater in Austin, and Bill, you and I will have seen it by then anyway, before then. But when we all go to our watch party, we come out together and go to that first bar in Austin, Texas, which we'll plug later, to talk about it. I think we're all probably going to look at each other and say, "Wow, that was like 40% Snyder, 60% Joss."
Yeah,
or vice versa. Whatever, you know what I'm saying? I think
that's going to be. Is fun the word to use? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to discuss that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think stylistically this thing is going to be a very much a wild ride, and it could be a great ride. I hope it is, but it's certainly not. This isn't a Zack Snyder film. It's just not. That's no disrespect to Zack. It's just not. It's not. It's a Zack and Joss film, but they're not going to do co-directing credits, and If you are wanting to throw tomatoes at me, and this is like, I'm like the Penguin in Batman Returns, whatever.
I'm just saying that out loud is heresy to a lot of people right now.
It's there. It's out. But Ben Affleck confirmed it. That's what he means when he says that. A tale of two directors doesn't mean that somebody came in and did a couple of reshoots. That's not what that means.
Yes.
That's all.
Yep. All right, Ryan.
Yeah. Can I just read the quote? Did we read the quote?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. He says, "It's a little bit unorthodox," admits Ben Affleck, who will reprise the role of Batman in Justice League. "Zack had a family tragedy and stepped off, which was horrible. For the movie, the best person we could have possibly found was Joss. We got really lucky that he stepped in." Affleck, who helmed the Best Picture winning Argo, describes the resulting film as an interesting product of two directors, both with kind of unique visions, both with really strong takes. "I've never had that experience before making a movie. I have to say, I really love working with Zack, and I really love the stuff we've done with Joss." So
that's even more, I read part of the quote. That's even more definitive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I wouldn't even, and see, I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, yeah, he's saying great stuff." And reading that out loud to myself, I'm like, I don't really think anything about that is necessarily positive. It's, Ben Affleck is a really smart, talented, articulate guy, right? And
yes,
for him, the best he can come up with when he's talking about it is it's unorthodox and it's interesting. And, that says it all to me, and he's being very clever
and he's a filmmaker too. He's a filmmaker.
Exactly. And he does say it's two directors, both have unique visions, both have strong takes. That, I don't know, I guess what he doesn't say is both unique visions, both strong takes, both work really well together. Like, he doesn't say something to like tie those two threads together necessarily. Which, that could be me reading into it, but like I said, it's interesting how that comment kind of plays out. But then go ahead.
Let me say, I don't know if he went rogue on that or not, because that's clearly not, and with all due respect to the studio, that's not the studio line. Because I think their line would be that maybe they're continuing with this stuff about, Joss finishing Zach's vision, but that's not happening. And that is not us bashing Zack Snyder. It's just the fact of the matter. He was not brought on to finish Zach's vision. In fact, he came on much earlier than when we found out that Zach was no longer on the project. So, I mean, I'm just telling you the fact of the matter, what happened, and folks can believe what they want to believe, and I know and God knows that some of them just, God bless them too, they refuse to believe, they're looking at grass and they're saying the grass is blue and it's clearly green, so go ahead, Ryan.
And, and in the next little paragraph, he both comments on the reshoots and the THR stuff about him not playing Batman. And again, he says exactly what he should be saying, and people taking it completely he's debunking everything. Look at him go. I'm like, no, guys. Just, it's all of this is a snapshot in time. Just kind of calm down. We all need to just, it is what it is at this point. No matter what happens between now and then, we just kind of need to get to November. But he says, in conversation with Entertainment Weekly, Affleck also brushed off rumors that the Justice League reshoots indicated problems with the film. I've never worked on a movie that didn't do reshoots, Affleck says. Argo, we did reshoots for a week and a half. 4 days on Gone Baby Gone. And though the studio hasn't said anything official about Affleck's future as Batman, the actor is confident that Justice League reflects the best ambitions of the DC Extended Universe. This is really a nice time to work in DC. They're hitting their stride. They're getting it right. It's starting to feel like it's really working. Okay. Let me say this. If he's trying to, I don't know what he's doing there. If he's trying to, say, oh, they're not, these reshoots weren't a big deal. Using, Argo and Gone Baby Gone and their very short time of reshoots is not a good example. 4 days is different than 4 months or something. However long it's 2.5, 3. I mean, it's basically almost 3 months.
Hey, by the way, guys, as we're sitting here, and I don't want to do a play-by-play of Twitter, but there is a tweet going around saying rumor that Zack Snyder is returning to finish off final scenes in Justice League.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. That's we got it covered.
Oh, we got this. Yeah, that's the site that Batman on Film talked to, last week.
Yeah. So I retweeted it and just put, that is not true.
That is absolutely not true.
That is not true. Okay.
All right. Where were we? You completely made me lose my train of thought there, Mr. Shew. Ryan, get us back on track, man.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to cut this somewhere. But yeah, we were talking about Affleck's comments about reshoots and four days on Gone Baby Gone and a week and a half on Argo.
And then he addressed, the Batman thing again and basically saying,
and he said it's starting to feel like it's really working, which means that it hasn't worked yet.
It hasn't been working, so it's starting to now. So it hasn't been, and
is that a Freudian slip or was that, I don't know. I don't want to look too much into that. I mean, you know what I mean? He could have just, I don't know.
What? Come on.
I don't necessarily look at all those little gotcha moments, those little comments. I don't know if he meant it hasn't been working. Now it's working.
Well, to be fair, if we're telling people to quit taking things so literal and use for confirmation, I think we can. That would be a little petty to say that, but I mean, come on, it's a little. He's saying it's starting to work. That's there is a little bit of it wasn't working before, but whatever. I
get it. I mean, and maybe he did mean that. Maybe it was a Freudian slip. I'm just saying. Right.
I don't think it's not big news that he said that, but I think the other stuff is pretty significant myself.
Sure. No, absolutely.
And
I mean, for the guy that's currently playing Batman to come out and make a statement about the directors and the tone of the film, that's significant. That's why we're talking about it.
And he continues to say, he'll play Batman as long as Warner Brothers, if they'll have him. And he's not saying he's yet to confirm it's complete PR. And I know people. Rick, you explained it better than anybody else, even by far. Explain this, how this is not lying, it's PR and it's protecting lots of money and a business. I don't know if you
Right.
want to use your analogy again, but you're a businessman, and I know you can explain it well.
If you get into toxic absolutism about anything, it's dangerous, particularly the word lying, when it's about protecting a multi-million-dollar franchise. Let's just say, for instance, that Ben Affleck is not returning to play the role of Batman after Justice League. He knows it. Everybody knows it behind the scenes. They're not going to say this right now. Well, actually, maybe Casey Affleck did. We'll get to that in a moment, but certainly that wasn't supposed to happen. But anyway, they're not going to announce that and before Justice League comes out. And if Ben Affleck's asked about it, he's going to play coy and allude and even maybe say that he is returning. He has to do that. You can't go into a multi-million-dollar film that's coming out that's going to require a lot of press and have the guy playing Batman saying, yeah, this is my swan song. Guys, this is the last time I'll be Batman. How weird would that be for publicity? He can't say that.
Cannot.
He cannot say
cannot.
He's not lying. He's doing his job.
Right.
And he's protecting an asset, and he's protecting
the integrity of a film,
and the integrity of a film, and a buttload of cash. It's a lot of money. What is the tally on this film after reshoots? What is it? What are we up to right now? 300, several hundred million, right?
Sure it's
Yeah. Right. Now think about that. Just think about that for a moment. I mean, you can't throw that under the bus, right? You just can't do it.
No, and I can say this, and I'll try to be as vague as possible. Those cast members who were at Comic-Con were very prepared for any possible question they could be asked, and I'll leave it at that. All right,
and then
so,
that was a day after the TH article came out too, about Affleck not being Batman. So yeah, it made total sense that they would have had some sort of rundown.
They were prepared for everything that could be asked, and they were prepared for everything they were going to be asked. I'll leave it at that. All right. Speaking of Casey Affleck and Ben Affleck's future as Batman, this got a lot of run this last week. I believe it was. These days are starting to just melt into each other now. Casey Affleck threw out a first pitch for the Boston Red Sox game here recently, and he was on WEEI Sports Radio. And they asked him about Ben Affleck, his brother, of course, his future as Batman, and I believe it was something along. They asked him, is he still going to do that solo movie, or I don't know what the exact way they worded the question, but that's basically it. But Casey said he's not going to do that movie, I don't think, or so I would say. And he kind of said it matter of fact. I mean, you can watch the actual video.
For a minute.
Yeah. And then the host says, is that breaking news? And he kind of gathers himself and said, is that breaking news? I was just kind of making that up. Quote.
Right.
So, Ryan, I wrote what I thought about it. I just said, look, it means nothing either way. It's
exactly.
nothing. It means nothing. It really does. And I got a lot of shit for reporting a clickbait.
Just for reporting it.
And I reported it. Not only did I just report it, I also said this means nothing.
Yes.
Nothing.
BOF's liars. You're lying.
I really think that these people do not even read anything I write or say.
Not only do they not, they don't know the actual true definition of what clickbait is.
Yes.
They don't know. They think anything is clickbait. Like, do you guys actually?
Anything they don't agree with or like is clickbait.
Everything they don't agree with is clickbait. Absolutely.
I got accused of that on my political page, and I shared an article from the Daily Beast, and someone said, "You're just trying to clickbait." I'm going, "Clickbait what? The Daily Beast?" I'm not even driving this to my site, dude. You know,
man.
They don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll digress. All right, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the reactions that I saw right away were just like, "It's clear that he's joking, you idiot clickbait people." I'm like, and I've saw that a lot. Like, it's obvious, it's clear that he's joking, that he's just saying stuff just to whatever. I'm just like, no, it's not clear either way. Cause I even said this on Twitter. This is like the perfect article just for this, kind of DCEU fanboy, like, upsetness that's going on, like, it's something that happened. We can just report it and talk about it, but there's enough at play with how that whole article and comment went that you could say it goes either way. And Casey Affleck is kind of a jokester at times. I think it's fair to say. He'll say things just to rise people up. That's not happened before. So, and he's a smart guy too.
Yeah,
it's a smart guy. Like he said the quote, he said it the way he did, and then they're like, "It's breaking news." Oh, we're gonna say that. He's like, "Oh, I was just making it up," and that's very like clever. And it seems like he didn't really intend to say it that way to start with. So he backtracked and he was smart about it. But yeah,
he could have made it up. He could have been telling the truth and backtracked. Who the hell knows? It doesn't matter. And I don't know. Maybe if if the host hadn't have said, "Is that breaking news?" If they had just said, "Oh, okay," and let it go. That I mean, who knows what he would have said. But I thought it was a little bit interesting that his people, quote unquote, had to come out and clarify, the next day. And even Ben Affleck's reps issued a statement saying the same thing. Ben Affleck likes playing Batman, and he will play Batman as long as Warner Brothers will have him.
Yeah, that which is
thing. But, and that's interesting, right? Like, I don't want to get into the drama or gossip about this because we've made our stance on this. My guess is he's probably not returning. If he does, great. We want him to.
I mean,
but he never says, "I'm doing the Batman with Matt Reeves."
Never.
All this line is this line that we're hearing is what we'll continue to hear about. He'll be Batman as long as the studio will have him. All that boils down to is that's all we have to tell you right now. That's all we're going to talk about, and that's all that we know and can tell you right now.
And is he setting up the studio here? Like, it's kind of weird, right? Like, he's saying, as long as they'll have me, well, he's not doing it. So I guess that means the studio didn't want him. And then,
well, let's ask the studio.
How do people respond to that? Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of...
You're putting the ball in their court almost.
Yeah, and he's kind of covering his ass a little bit, and I think, look, I said on my mailbag when I was asked about it, I said, I'm a optimistic 50-50. I want him to return. I've said that I don't know how many times. Of course, the fanboys and fangirls don't ever hear that because they don't read or listen. They don't read Batman on Film, anything I write. They don't listen to the podcast. So they just go by shit on Reddit and Twitter and all this other nonsense. It's just, So I hope he returns. My gut thinks he won't, but like I said, look, I'm going to be I'm an optimistic 50-50. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. The other, apart from the fanboy reaction, was something interesting I thought of when this news came out is when the news came out, I saw quite a bit, like a good handful, 5-10, like really good, respectable reporters, come out and be like, "Oh my God, this again. Can we please just stop talking about Ben Affleck? This is the worst, like, kept secret in Hollywood, or it's like the worst thing to talk about. Like, it keeps coming up, and who cares about this?" I saw a lot of that when this came out too.
Yeah, and I also look. I'm going to take a question from the mailbag right now because it's kind of about what we're talking about, and I will say that I was Peter from Slash Film and Frosty over at Collider. Mm-hmm. They're kind of with me. I'm fed up with this asinine, immature, antisocial behavior by this small segment of fandom. It's ridiculous. I've never seen it like this. It's embarrassing. It gives all of us a bad name, and that pisses me off. Patrick Johnson says this, guys. He says, "I love you guys. Your podcasts are great. But I'm wondering why take so much time addressing the idiotic comments from fanboys that are never going to learn that you're always right." Okay, thank you there, Patrick. "You have said before on numerous occasions that you have an inside track and have friends at Warner Brothers, and they still protest. I guess they weren't paying attention. Are they not that smart, or are doing it just for shits and giggles? Viva la BOF. Let's just say our piece on this topic real quick and be done with it, because there's nothing we're going to do. Frankly, I don't think there's anything we can do to change it. I mean, I've been trying to do this for 15 years, and it's not going to happen. It's out of my hands. So, Rick, say your piece on these folks, and I mean, I told you, congratulations, you got a death threat over a frickin' Batman, as opposed to the political site you do, in addition to, to helping out here on Batman on Film. So
it's been less visceral talking about neo-Nazism and modern day America marching the streets than it has been Justice League.
And you've had people attack you for saying that.
That's insane, and it's absolutely true. I'm an integral part of two sites, and because Left Shoe Politics isn't just me, but just by name only. But anyway, it's true. It's absolutely true. Look, here's the thing. It is the internet. It is the world we now live in. People talk to one another this way online. I'm certainly not saying I'm innocent. I always respond, and that's sometimes my response is beneath me. But I never go on the attack on people. But at the end of the day, the gentleman, and I want to make sure I reference him properly. Who wrote that letter to us, Bill, or sent that email?
That is Mr. Patrick Johnson.
Okay, Patrick Johnson.
This was via Facebook.
Okay, Patrick Johnson, I want to address you directly, sir. You have a very good point. We too often talk about this and these people, and we all have talked about that off mic. Yep. We all know that that's true, and we're working on that. And for that, we apologize. We've probably taken up too much precious airtime talking about it. But at the same time, I would say 70-75% of the time we have talked about it was justified, and we do need to defend our brand. And when I see defamation of BLF on Twitter, I protect my people. And, I have challenged people and said, look, you just made a list of things, literally, of things that Batman on Film supposedly does. Here's what I'll do. I will donate $100 to you every single one of these things that you've listed. Give me one example of when we've done that. And people can't do it. So they can't do it. So listen, here's the thing. We're not perfect. We're far from it, especially Bill and I. We can kind of, we're Texans and we drink too much beer. But at the end of the end of the day, we're not. And I say this and I mean this, and you don't have to like me. I don't, if you do, great. If you don't, great.
And I want to say, Rick, before you say it, I read what you wrote. I screenshot it and I posted it, and I appreciate everything you said on that.
It's all true. You're welcome, but I just was being honest. I wasn't. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. But you know what I mean?
I did it too.
When you're just being honest, I don't think you need to be thanked for that. That's just what you're supposed to do, is be honest. We are not liars. We don't make things up. We don't clickbait. We never release a set photo and listen, guys, set footage that's unauthorized. If you guys
let me say this.
Let me just
hold on. One second. I could ruin Justice League for everybody listening right now.
You could.
And I'm not.
Right.
You know why? Because I respect the filmmakers. I respect the cast. I respect the folks at Warner Brothers. I respect the people who, via all of those people I know from all these years, who would allow me to even be an asshole and do that. I would never do that. And I guarantee you their sites, if they knew what I knew, would have that shit all over the internet.
Oh, yeah. All over the internet. And so you guys don't even know what all Bill knows. It's crazy. And we are privy to it. And we even protect the little that we know because it's about integrity. And that's the part that pisses me off. You don't have to like our tone. You don't have to like the show. You don't have to like our opinions. That's great. That's all fine, right? There's other sites. There's great, like Holy Batcast we talked about earlier. Maybe that's more your cup of tea. It's a great show. Listen to Andy, support him, right? And I say that genuinely. He's great. It's a very different tonal show. But what we are not is liars. Ever, never, ever. And I will defend that. But at the same time, we do get a little carried away in terms of we get a little too worked up sometimes about it, and it is beneath us, and we're going to work on that, we promise.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm going to echo that. it as someone who's loved this stuff since long as I can remember, Batman, front and center. It just angers me that people act like that about over this character, and it's these people, which is a small segment. I mean, a piss in the ocean.
They're so loud, though.
They're loud. They're extremely loud, and that's the perception of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got Justin and Ryan and Rick and Peter Vera and all of these people who are, Chris Clow. I can just, continue on and all you fans out there. I know you're out there. I know that you're the majority. And so, you know what? We're going to do better. Ryan, say your piece, man.
Well, so
it's, it's tough when someone in disgust says, just because over the Ben Affleck, I don't even know what it was, some story, it was just me reporting, told me, I effed your mom up the ass last night, and I was like, well, that would be impossible because my mom's been dead for, 7 years, sir, and unless you are a necrophiliac and somehow dug her up, and I mean,
people are vicious and insane right now. I mean,
that's all they got. I mean,
Yeah. So from my standpoint, to answer the question about like, why do you keep addressing this stuff? I mean, and on one hand, to me, like in the back of my head, it goes to like, I keep thinking about that quote from Batman Begins actually, where Rachel's in the car with Bruce and she's like, what chance does Gotham have if the good people do nothing? And it makes me think like, if I don't start calling out bad articles or, bad fanboys, who will? On one hand, I want to call people out. On the other hand, I don't want to make too much of a fuss of it. So I've tried to be selective about it, but it's gotten so bad in the last week alone that it's been so difficult. Like, when Rick made his post about these are the things that BOF doesn't do, and we had people say, oh no, that's not true. They post clickbait all the time. They post a list. They're always the first people to post a list of set photos and set footage. And I went and I was like,
and that's empirically freaking not
absolutely
true.
False. Yeah. And my approach to it was to actually just ask them the question, not even like be meaner to them or anything, but I would legitimately ask those people the question. I would say, you can hate BOF, but do not say stuff that's false. They don't do this. They don't do that. Please show me one example. And they kind of, block me because they know I'm right.
Well, and also, listen, and this is important because it is about integrity. Not only do we not, you do the exact opposite. When you know that there's something going around that has leaked, you will warn people. Hey, don't go to these certain sites. Keep your eye open for this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You warn people, Bill, not leak it. You do the exact opposite. You tell people, encourage them to please don't support those sites. Don't go to those pages and do that.
And that's what I do too. Like when I'll like retweet something, I think some people that I follow kind of like it. I'll tweet an article that's obviously false just to be like, don't look at this. I looked at this, so you don't have to, but fanboys have been so bad lately. Like I saw,
and it's a certain group. You know what? We call them the fanboys and the fangirls. And there was someone who's, I won't mention who it is. I want to give him credit, but I don't know if they would want me to give him credit. But he told me, he calls it the alt-right of fandom. And that's a pretty good term as well.
They're out to get anybody that's feels threatened by any truthful article out there that doesn't agree with what they think. Yes. But
and let's be honest, what it is. What's the elephant in the room? It's Zack Snyder, and it's in his DCEU films. That's the bottom line
for 99%. But actually, what is interesting is like it's just so bad in general. I mean, on Monday I saw Batman and Harley Quinn in the theater, and I was genuinely disappointed in the movie. Like I was like very let down by it for a lot of reasons. A lot of people share those reasons, and and I was so bummed about it. I went on Twitter not to even blast the movie, but to be like literally like, man, I really didn't like this movie, and here's what I thought about it. am I wrong in this? And then I had somebody like respond to me and say, "Oh, you're just a piece of crap and F you." And, you know, can't you let people have fun? And I'm just like, I'm just being honest about what I thought about a movie, like, and people jump out to attack you. So it's bad. It's bad. And it's hard because sometimes you get stuck between a rock and a hard place, because on one hand, I want to address the bad stuff, but not ignore the good stuff, but be honest about stuff.
That's it. Right.
And
there.
It's hard. It's
right
hard.
There.
Yeah.
Everything that comes out, we're just going to be honest about it. If we like it, we don't like it, or whatever. And I always go back to this, and then I think this is probably a good time for us to change topics. If you guys, I'll just say this: when people jump on us about that stuff, whether it's our BVS complaints or what have you, first of all, they like to ignore that one of the key players on this site is a big BBS fan, but nevertheless. But is that I say, well, do you like Batman and Robin? Oh God, no, that movie's awful. So are you a hater? Are you a hater because you don't like that movie? Do you see what I'm saying?
Dark Knight Rises. Like, I mean,
and that's the Dark Knight Rises for that matter, right? Like,
oh, you love Nolan movies. That means you hate Batman. I'm like, what?
Well, I'm just saying. So we don't like certain things that are being produced right now, but there are things I can reference that are 100% Batman centric that you don't like. So what's the difference? It's just because it's in real time? Is that that's weird. That doesn't make any sense.
Same shoe, different foot. Yeah.
All I know is this: Wonder Woman was awesome. Ben Affleck's a great Batman. Matt Reeves is a stellar director. Let's see where 2018 takes us. What's our next topic?
See what happens. All right, I agree. All right, back to Justice League, and this is what actor Joe Martin, who plays Dr. Silas Stone in Justice League, he's what he had to say about the reshoots and their purpose, and specifically about how they affected Ray Fisher's Victor Stone / Cyborg. He says, well, the stuff that I had to do were really small little bits and pieces, nothing necessarily having to do with tone. I know that with Ray Fisher, the young man who plays Victor, there were some adjustments that they made in terms of tone of that character. I think what I heard was that there was a need from the studio to lighten up the film in a way that the film felt too dark. I don't know what that meant in terms of how it actually got translated in terms of the reshoots, but that's what I heard. That's what I thought some of the reshoots were about. So, anybody surprised?
No. But it also goes to, like, this is kind of also a non-article, right? Because I on one hand, it's interesting that he addresses the reshoots and says that, yeah, he's been back for the reshoots, and his explanation about how, you know, the film was too dark and stuff. Well, dark is such a buzzword, you know, it's almost like a bad word now, because how do you interpret that? So many people interpret, ever since Batman Returns, you know, it's like, this film was darker than the first. Well, I don't know about that, you know? So it's hard
and I disagree with that, by the way.
See, exactly. And that's a whole discussion. So it's hard to interpret that, but it is good that he right after said, but I don't really know what that means. So, but the undeniable thing is that, there are Justice League reshoots and they're changing the movie somehow.
Yes. And there's some people who just, okay, if you accept the fact that, okay, they did, you know, like 2.5, 3 months of reshoots and brought in a new director and brought in a new composer and a new editor, and they've made significant changes to the script and blah, 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 et cetera, then, okay, yeah, you've got to say, okay, yeah, you know, this makes sense. If you are one of those who just dug in your heels and you think that this is nothing that's been going on, nothing has happened, then you're probably going to call bullshit on this too. This means nothing. So I mean, look, the bottom line is they made a lot of changes to the film. They're lightening the thing up a little bit. They're trying to make it better, and that's what I've said all along. They are doing everything they can, and I've applauded Warner Brothers for this. And I don't care what anybody thinks. They are doing whatever they can to make the film good. So the end product is all that matters. Okay? We're just reporting what was said, and then we're going to give our take on it. That's it.
Yeah.
Rick.
That's it. I mean, to be honest with you, after Ryan's response, I didn't really have anything to add to this. That's it.
Okay. All right, let's.
I don't mean to. I'm not being lazy here. That's.
No, I mean, yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
gotcha. Okay.
I mean, that's the thing. A lot of the Justice League articles between now and November are going to be like this. It's going to be, well, here's what's happening, and it's all going to boil down to, well, it is what it is. We'll see what happens, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And cut. And that's a wrap.
All right, let's take just a few questions, and then we'll take this thing on out. All right, Jason Dillon at Carter2480 on Twitter asked us, any chance they move the November date? Seems to be cutting it close to finish new.
Not now.
FX shots, edit, and score at that time. Yeah, I agree. No way now, dude. No way. And yeah, they're gonna be up against it, man. Up against it. I remember at Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises premiere, like the first screening, the press screening I went to in LA. It was, I think it might have been Rises. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's the point of taking. And I had talked to Emma Thomas, and she was like, we were working on this literally until like a few days ago. And that's a film that stopped filming, principal photography, like, oh my gosh, 7-8 months before the film was released, if not a little bit longer than that. And, yeah, they're going to be up against it, man. And I think it would be, Rick, what do you think? You think it would be just a PR nightmare to push this thing back at this point?
Yeah, they especially with all the things that have surfaced around or circled around it in terms of bad juju, Ben Affleck stepping down as director is for the Batman. It's not necessarily a sometimes films will change their dates. Star Wars, for instance, is doing it, but there is a pretty how can I phrase this? You don't do it just months before the movie's supposed to come out,
right?
Especially a film that already has some bad negative press, like you just don't. I think that would be a nail in the coffin in terms of bad PR. They have to get this thing out in November. They have to.
Yeah. No way now. Yeah, I mean, the last chance they would have had to have changed the date fully like that would have been right before they released the trailer and those first posters that had the date, because that would have been before the film's marketing got into gear, so they could have done it then. And there is some precedent for some films, like the Transformers movies comes to mind, where a week or 2 or 3 before it comes out, they'll change the date, but it'll only shift a couple of days or something. And it's usually earlier, because usually some of those movies come around holidays and they're like, oh, let's release it a couple days early. I think even like the Amazing Spider-Man 1 changed dates, but it's usually in the positive. So
what is the exact release date of Justice League? Forgive me, I don't have it in front of me.
November 17th.
Okay. And what is the exact release date of Star Wars? December 15th?
Or something? Yeah.
15th, I think. Okay. Just curious.
They got about a month.
They've got a month.
And Thor is before. Ragnarok
is
before.
Yeah, and the buzz on that's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, well, and also, I mean, it could be shit, but the goodwill for the MCU is just, carries a lot of those films. That's just the fact of the matter.
That's right. And that's the same thing with Star Wars. Disney's 2 for 2 right now, so there's goodwill going into Star Wars.
Yeah.
So
all right,
Marvel, right? Well, Disney's like king, right? I mean, I just connected those dots with Marvel in my head when I said that.
Yep. All right, Kevin Lynn. This is from the BOF Facebook fan page. Hey, Jett and gang. Any news about when pre-production will start on Matt Reeves' Batman film? I haven't heard anything. I think that he's probably in the very, very early stages because he's writing the script. And look, no rush on this, man. Don't rush this thing. I don't think there's any way it comes out. Well, definitely not coming out next year. I mean, that's not even a realistic thought. I don't think 19 is even that realistic. I think 20 is going to be the date for that film. That's my opinion. He would have to be through with writing and doing all pre-production and all this stuff by the end of this year, and then going in front of the camera sometime early next year, 2018, to get it out in 19. And I don't think,
Yeah, no way.
Yeah.
There's no way that Warner Brothers lets another false start happen with this movie.
Yeah. So let him have all the time he needs to do this, do it right. Rick, any thoughts on?
No, just I
Batman?
echo that. Take your time, Mr. Reeves, and let's just have. I want a film that is better than the Nolan films. How cool would that be? Like, wow, somebody actually even was able to surpass those masterpieces. Do
No
it.
problem. I'd have no problem.
I am all for it. Do it. That's it.
All right. This one will be a little. I guess we'll answer it. And this gives us a chance to show that we're not what the perception is. Mauricio, via Facebook, why did Warner Brothers hire Zack Snyder to helm the DCU if his films have a tendency to be divisive? I mean, I can understand their logic for giving him Man of Steel, but after it also underperformed and yet again was a divisive movie, why not just hire someone else? Look,
it wasn't their time to do that then. I mean,
no. For one thing, I like Zack Snyder. I think there was goodwill on my part with him before Man of Steel and even after Man of Steel, even going into BVS. I just didn't like BVS when I saw it, and to be honest, Chris Nolan had a lot to do with hiring Zack Snyder for Man of Steel because he was the producer in charge of godfathering that thing into production. So, there was, yes, Warner Brothers kind of, I don't know if panicked is the word to use, but they thought Man of Steel was going to be a $1 billion film, and it was short of that, and it did not get as good a reviews as they thought. I really like Man of Steel. I really like Man of Steel a lot.
I think it speaks to a lot of the things. It's like Batman is such a malleable character that a lot of people could go along with the choices that Nolan made in resurrecting that franchise. And because Batman Begins was kind of a sleeper hit that when The Dark Knight came out, it was like, oh my gosh, here it is. And it was super successful. And so was Rises. And so when you have that kind of filmmaker like Nolan behind resurrecting Superman, that kind of expectation is on it from the start. Oh, it's that same team. Oh, it's gonna make $1 billion easy. It's Superman, but that's not always the case, as we saw. And Superman is I would say a little harder to reinterpret like that.
Yeah, I would say the only, really divisive Zack Snyder film would be BVS that had anything to do with this topic here. I don't think, there were some people who didn't like Man of Steel, but I think overall people like Man of Steel
well, people fought on Twitter every day about Man of Steel until BVS came out, and now they argue about BVS.
Oh, okay.
I'll say that.
Look, maybe I'm just naive because I like Zack. I like him as a dude, and everything. Look, 300 was an awesome movie.
Great. Watchmen's a masterpiece.
Watchmen, I love Watchmen.
And it's cool to be on this podcast with you guys, and you guys love Watchmen as much as I do, because I know people that love Snyder more than, they love BVS and they don't like Watchmen.
I'll say
That's
something.
Crazy.
This will be
Watchmen is off the charts. Phenomenal.
It's top 10 superhero movie.
That was Watchmen. That material was right up his alley. Right up his alley. He did a great job. And look, this may be blasphemy, but maybe Alan Moore is going to start trolling me, but I like the ending of the movie better than the ending of the book.
It's an improvement. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. So, I think that after BVS and the reaction that got, and they did try to course correct. We know all of that. There was a lot of changes made to Justice League, but there just wasn't time. If you really wanted, to make a director, there just wasn't time to do it. It was about to go into production. It was about to start filming within weeks after BVS was out.
And we talked about that too. You compare it to what happened with the Batman. It's like, well, the Batman wasn't far enough. They were right at the cusp of being able to start filming and having to having to make the movie, but they didn't get to that point quite yet. But they were past that point with Justice League. They had to make that movie.
They had to make it. They were past the point of no return.
Exactly.
So, and look where we're at now. I mean, you want me to answer your question? Look what's happened over the last 8 months with this. So I think that speaks for itself. Rick, any thoughts on what Mr. Mauricio had to say?
No, I think we just said it all. We know, but nobody here hates Snyder, man. So
exactly. That's just
I really, Man of Steel. Actually, it's funny. BVS, I liked it a lot more when it came out, and I like it less now. And that's my problem with it is I try not to watch it because every time I do, I like it less and less. So I want to remember the moments that I really love in BVS, and there's plenty, right? With Man of Steel, it's actually the opposite. Like it's better, and in a weird way, I think BVS's biggest contribution for me personally is it did reinforce some things about Man of Steel that I liked, and it did sort of retroactively make some of that last 30 minutes more bearable. And so in a sense, it did make Man of Steel better. That's an interesting conundrum, right? Because I'm not a big fan of BVS, but it made me like Man of Steel more. Not for nostalgic reasons, not, I wish it was as good as this movie. I mean, it actually strengthened the film. And so that's cool. So
I'll still put in Man of Steel and watch it now.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan. The ending, I mean, look, I don't care if he killed Zod. Spoiler alert. I'm sorry, but that film was 4 years ago.
It's action overload, though.
Yeah, it is.
Superman kills Zod in Superman 2. I'll go to the Supreme Court with that argument. He's
done it in the comics too. Like,
he kills him.
Yeah.
You can't reference the Richard Donner director's cut. I'm sorry, that's not canon. The film is the Richard Lester theatrical release. He lets him fall, a human being. First, he crushes his hand. That poor guy needs a doctor. And he falls down a pit. You can hear him scream, with presumably no food or water, and certainly not any help. And he flies off with Lois.
Here's a penny pack with the stamp.
You can't deny that. Like, there's not. So enough of the he killed Zod thing. I joke about it because it's funny. But
I mean, yes, could they have made a different choice with the same effect? I mean, there could have been some way to zap him back into the Phantom Zone or something. I mean, I'll give that argument.
That could have even I mean, I'm sure they thought about alternatives to that, but I bet you at the end of the day they were like, well, anything other than this kind of betrays the through line of the story we want to tell. So, and that's the choice they made. And Nolan and Snyder talked about it, and I think Nolan was against it, but Snyder convinced him that
and it was
the right move for the story.
It represents.
He was against it. You're right.
Yeah, it represents. He identifies himself as a human,
right,
and not an alien from Krypton,
right.
And it doesn't matter, when he had to make a choice between his ancestors, not the word to use, but his lineage,
right.
from that planet, and he chooses what he feels he is. He's a human. He's human. And so I had no problem with it. Yeah, tighten up that destruction a little bit. That was a little bit long, but whatever. I like, like I said, the point is we like Zack Snyder. We like a lot of his films. We just have some issues with the decision he made in the decisions, I guess, he made with in BVS, and that's it. Yeah, that's nothing.
And here's my bottom line.
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
Here's my thing. It's just, we all talked about just now how much we love like Man of Steel and Watchmen and stuff, but there's BVS too, and but overall, and with BOF and our opinions and everything, I mean, there's a difference between how we feel about Snyder and the truth of what's actually happening with a movie like Justice League, and we and the listeners and people that don't really like the way BOF does things need to kind of keep that in mind. I mean, it's just how it is right now.
Yeah, and I put this on Twitter. I was being sarcastic. I was like, shh, don't tell anybody that I really hope Justice League is good, and I want to like it a whole lot. So wow, whatever. So
but you guys were talking about how BVS kind of retroactively made Man of Steel a little bit better. I genuinely hope that Justice League retroactively makes BVS better for me. because there are some things that choices in BBS I didn't like. Well, a lot of them. But Justice League has the potential to do that. Even in this last trailer I saw some things I was like, oh man, if they do what I think they're going to do with that could actually help BBS
and make it a little more forgiving. I guess maybe that's the way to.
Yeah, it could enhance could enhance the story, some of the story choices they made, and that's all I'm looking for.
All right, let's plug some stuff and get the hell out of here. Rick, go ahead.
Well, just follow me on Twitter. I don't really have anything on Left Shoe to plug right now. We're going to be doing some stuff next week. We'll be doing a Left Shoe podcast, so I'll talk about that later. But follow me on Twitter at ShewRick, ShewRick. And be sure, guys, our Justice League watch party is November. You just said the date earlier. Somebody, what was it?
It's 18th. It's the day after.
18th. Yeah. I don't know why I have a mental block on that date. So. If you have any questions about this, please email us or hit us up on Twitter, because I would very much encourage you guys to go ahead and book your hotel rooms if you're traveling. Yes. Because that same weekend is the comic book festival. What is it?
Is it Wizard World?
Wizard World. I couldn't get Bill Wizard _44 out of my head. Bill's
Wizard 44 Con.
Yeah, Wizard 44 Con. So it's going to be kind of a crazy weekend in a good way. So book your flights. And if you have any questions about the city of Austin, where to stay, all that stuff, hit up Bill and I. I'm not the greatest in terms of hotel recommendations because I have family there, so I stay with them. But I can certainly help you out and guide you in any way. We'd love to have you there. Yeah,
I'll say this. Anything in downtown will be close to the theater. It's actually, it's south of the river. It's a little south of downtown, not far. But I mean, like, if you stayed in downtown Austin, you would be within 4 miles of the theater. But there's a lot of great places in Austin. There's the W, there's the Driscoll. I mean,
it's
Hyatt
great.
Agency. Everything.
There's just great hotels, just like any other major city. And then I'll plug this too. There's a lot of exciting things on the horizon in terms of non-Batman podcasts that we're going to be doing some Star Wars stuff. It is announced that the Ewan McGregor. Well, okay, it's announced that Disney Lucasfilm is going to do a Obi-Wan standalone film. I'm only assuming and hoping, and it better be, that Ewan McGregor is starring in it.
Yeah. Why else would you do it?
Why else would you do it? Don't do that. Even prequel haters love him. Don't do it, Disney. Right. And so that's cool. We'll have a podcast about that. We still have the Rocky podcast we want to do, but there's a lot of Batman stuff. Obviously, that's the most important. Batman 89, the Dark Knight trilogy, period. Like, we're just going to discuss that as a whole. And then our favorite superhero scenes. And
we're going to do it. It's coming.
So just stick with us. Yeah. We're not going to talk about Justice League gossip every weekend. I promise. All right. But we had to address what we addressed today.
And look, if you're going to the watch party, try to get you a Dadgum original Batman on Film T-shirt to wear. We're all going to wear those there. It's at the Alamo Draft House on South Lamar in Austin. So if you do a Google map search of Alamo Draft House, South Lamar, Austin, Texas, and then put in nearby and just put hotels, you'll see all the hotels available. And then go to hotels.com or wherever you book your hotels with. I forget where I'm staying. I don't remember, but it's close to the theater. It's like southern part of downtown. So, anything about Austin, Rick? You want to mention how awesome that city is?
It's just a great city. It's I always say it's kind of a miniature San Francisco in a lot of ways to me, but it's also kind of a miniature Nashville too. I mean, the live music, and it is very much in my top 5 favorite cities in the U.S. So come to Austin. The only reason we don't live there versus Dallas is just because Dallas has more opportunity for my wife and I professionally. Otherwise, we would live down there.
I will be living there in about 3 years, but
you'll be living there retired. To be fair,
retired. Yes. Right. Well, retired from coaching and education, but not retired from Batman on Film. It's my favorite city in Texas. It's my favorite city in Texas. And I mean, it's everything Texas. It's got, the Tex-Mex is awesome. The barbecue is awesome. If you think Texas, there's all sorts. I mean, if you come down, I will tell you, some of the places to go to for, that are like classic places you have to go for either Tex-Mex or barbecue. And I mean, but the food is, besides the Texas stuff, Rick, it's just, everything, you know?
Well, it's everything, and we're going to hit up, and you guys Google this. First place I'm going to take everybody is Ramey Street. It's just a bunch of old houses that I can't believe the city allowed this. This is how cool Austin is. And a bunch of coalition like bar owners turn all these houses into bars. So you just walk down this street, Ramey Street, and it's these cool bars with awesome patios, and it was an old neighborhood. It's awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Salt Lick for barbecue. I mean, there's Franklin Barbecue, which you have to, people stand in line starting like at 7 a.m. to get barbecue from this place. And it's like you just walk through and get it, and then you sit out on tables and stuff, and they serve till it's gone, and it's like every day like that. I'm getting off on the tangent of Austin. And anyway, so great city. Ryan, what you got, dude?
Man, I have a ton of stuff to plug this week. It's crazy. You can follow me on Twitter though at SMB_Ryan, and even if you're a fanboy, I guess I'll probably talk to you. But I have 3 things to plug this week. First of all, we have a brand new podcast episode of the Everyone Loves the Drake, Tim Drake Robin podcast. Episode 59 is out. It's it's part 1 of our 0 hour discussion, which was a crossover back in the 90s, and there were a couple of good Robin issues that took place during that crossover. So
dude, I think I bought every tie-in to 0 hour back then.
There's some good comics in there.
That's when I got like a crossover burnout. It was I think it was 0 hour, but I mean everything tied in. I bought.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's like the actual story, just like now with like the DC Metal stuff. There's the actual story, and then there's like a tie-in issue for every series. But the only 2 we're going to cover on the podcast are the Robin related ones, which is like Robin 0 and Robin 10, and they're both pretty cool little comics. So, episode 59, you can check that out. You can follow that podcast on Twitter at ELTD Podcast or on the BatmanPodcastNetwork.com page. And even more added incentive, our pal Justin joins us on that episode too. So,
all right, cool.
There's more Justin talk there. I haven't mentioned my Super Mario Brothers movie website in a while, but we did get interviewed quite a while ago for a book. And that book is now out. It's written by Luke Owen from Flickering Myth. It's called Lights, Camera, Game Over, How Video Game Movies Get Made. And there's a bunch of sections in there about video game movies and how they get made, from the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is the first one, all the way down to some of the present day stuff. And
I was about to say, that was the first movie made based on a video game, huh?
Yes, exactly. And that's why it's so prestigious, and not in addition to all the crazy things that happened during the development of it. It's such a fascinating movie to discuss and talk about. And they sourced some quotes, and they interviewed us for that book and used our website for a lot of the research. So I'd like to give that little book a shout out. So that's pretty cool.
Hey, Ryan, did I ever tell you that whoever it was, some magazine I ordered, Super Mario Brothers 2, we're talking about the original Nintendo, accidentally shipped me a copy of that game long before it came out, like I think 2 months. It was crazy.
Holy crap!
And I was getting letters in the mail to send it back. I never did. I didn't tell my.
Oh, that's amazing! That's an awesome story.
So
did you play it 2 months early?
Yes, and so the letters just kind of eventually quit coming, which was awesome. So me and my cousin and I, we conquered the game. We figured out, and then I went to a buddy's house the day it came out. I was like, "Oh my god, you got Super Mario Brothers 2!" His name's Chris Goodman. It's a true story. I sat down and literally finished the game, like right in front of him, acting like it was my first time to play it. It was the day it came out. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Super Mario Brothers 2.
Just go in here and
my cousin and I spent like every day playing the game for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
Cool.
And
history has now shown us it's very non-traditional Mario game, but it's very cool.
It's a very, like when he's pulling the grass out of the
exactly, the vegetables.
All the vegetables.
I was obsessed with that game. I was obsessed with it. Anyway,
well, it's also a game that Mario and Luigi don't look the same. He's like taller,
right?
And
the first one where they actually like differentiate them. Yeah. You've got Mario, Luigi, the Princess, and Toad, and they each have. I mean, it's very kind of ahead of its time, honestly.
Yeah.
They don't really get back to that until Super Mario 3D World.
When did
Wii U?
When did Yoshi make his premiere?
Yoshi was Super Mario World
debuted
on the Super Nintendo.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm going to also share this. I've never forgotten this. 007-373-5963. That is the code to go straight to Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. It'll stay with me forever and ever and ever and ever. 007-373-5963. Go. And if you get past the first minute and a half of the Super Thunder punches, you got them.
Okay. 867-5349 as well.
I got one more thing to plug.
Okay. I was going to say Mario Kart was...
Oh, go ahead.
Awesome. I love that game, too.
Yeah, I have a lot of memories playing Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played that a lot with my dad. He just wanted to race and not use the items, but I had to use the items.
All right, go ahead, Ryan. Let's finish this thing out.
Yeah, so, my third thing to plug is, my day job is I'm a visual effects artist on video games, and our game that we've made at Volition is finally out. We've been working on it for a while. It's Agents of Mayhem. It came out last Tuesday. So it's on PC and Xbox One and PS4. So it's kind of crazy to actually say, yeah, I have a AAA video game that I worked on. You can go look on a store shelf and say, I kind of know that guy that worked on that game.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So and there's a lot of good work in it. It's a really cool game, and there's a lot of great effects in it. Not to toot my own horn in our team, but our team did a great job on that game. It's really cool. So go check out Agents of Mayhem if you're so inclined and you're a gamer.
Okay, well, for Ricky Joe Shew from Mesquite, Texas, and Ryan Hoss from, am I right, Durham, North Carolina?
Yes.
Rick Shew.
Okay, I am Bill. Hook 'em horns, go Cowboys. Now it's Rachel, take us out, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey now! You've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, BatmanPodcastNetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film Con podcast. Follow Jett on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/Jett.BatmanOnFilm. Email Jett via Jett@batman-on-film.com. Follow Rick on Twitter at ShewRick and on Facebook at facebook.com/BOF-Shew. For Jett, Rick, Justin, and Ryan, I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.